Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed Dior, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 6. So I had a loss before this match. Pretty much my opponent had a Strolinka, and I was like, oh, I should probably spread out. And then for my last action, I decided to put my Zerda right next to my tank, and pretty much threw the match round one. So little annoyed that I did that. It was just stupid of me to do that. The moment I did, I realized, oh shit, I just screwed up. In any case, I kind of wish I was able to show the other match, but like I said, I threw round one. But it was a very interesting box to say the least. It had like it only had like it was essentially a rush box, but had very few assassins to be honest. Anyway, so this is Timon, who's definitely not Lemon. 4 tanks, I think it is. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 4 tanks. So 4 tanks, and it looks like 3 healers, 4 healers if you count Langrisser. So yeah, this box is extremely defensive heavy. It looks like does have a few strikers and assassins, but it looks like it's mostly just a slow roll type box. They banned my Illustrial first, which makes sense because they need to get rid of anyone that can guard bypass. I went straight for the Ares. Like I said, I've been trying to switch off of just banning Juggler now and getting rid of other key targets like Rian and Ares. And to be honest, this box doesn't actually have a lot of long legs. They got Zerda, Juggler has a teleport, and then of course Luna here, of course, could do an extra move as well and buff everyone else's movement. But for the most part, yeah, there's not much long range here. Went ahead and grabbed Freya. There's no real reason for me to pick Albedo right now. They banned more of my long range and assassins. They picked Juggler. I was completely fine with that at this point. I'm more comfortable dealing with Juggler because most people that take Juggler end up taking things like Triton and then they're like 3-cost skill or whatever, and maybe a faction buff. And so until they teleport, they actually they can't guard magic until they actually teleport, which is kind of neat. I was a little torn on what to pick here, but I went ahead and got rid of their Zerda because they had long legs. And Yulia, I did not want to deal with any self-resing shenanigans, so went with that. Went ahead and grabbed Marielle. I figured Marielle was kind of a safe pick, even though I don't have a buff for her yet. There's plenty of opportunities for me to actually get buffs if I need them. Well, actually, there's only 2 opportunities now, but I don't think my opponent sees that. But Marielle is, provides passive healing in her first phase, and then she can also guard bypass and get extra mobility towards the end. They take the Luna, so I was like, okay, they're definitely going to try to rush me down, I guess. Went ahead and banned some of their healers in their Langrisser. This was just the plan was to ban those, and that would leave Rosenziel and Weiler, both of which I'm completely comfortable with them having for the most part. I was expecting them to pick a healer in this case, and also just to make sure I cover Marielle, I went ahead and grabbed my my Sophia. Also, he was banning my healers as well, so I kind of wanted to make sure I had coverage. Banned more of my long legs essentially. Went with Listel. It's been a long time since I fought with Listel. Listel hasn't been as popular anymore, mainly because there's so many gossipables going around, and of course you got Rosenziel, and a lot of people have things like fixed damage immunity. It makes her a lot harder to use. Also, Rian actually does heal reversal better than Listel because his last 2 turns and Listel's only last 1. Anyway, didn't take a healer, took Listel, so I was like, alright, I'll ban your healers. That pretty much gives me full control over this fight because the only passive healing they have is from Juggler. So if I wear down Juggler, the heals go down. I was like, alright, I need to make sure I don't get rushed down, so I went ahead and took Angelina here. And at this point, I was like, I was kind of comfortable with any of these picks, except for Albedo, because I didn't really need another tank. They went ahead and banned essentially my strikers and my assassin, leaving me with my caster, which makes sense because they have Luna. But that's not going to really help them much, to be honest. Also, they take Bozel, which also has pretty good magic defense. Usually Listel has pretty good magic defense, depending on how you build her. At this point, I was like, I don't want to deal with any more ranged damage reduction, so I got rid of Landius, and I did not want to be yanked around by the stupid quote-unquote honorable combat or honorable duel, whatever it's called. Or was it Righteous Duel? That's what it's called. Righteous Duel, where you pull their healer and melee them. So I got rid of Let In. That does leave 1 tank behind, but Albedo's all she can do is tank. She's not going to be that big of a threat, and I wasn't that concerned about Maya. She could do some like cleansing, and that's about it. She also has some AoE, but it's not as good as any of the other characters, to be honest. Also, she has no faction buff. Anyway, I took Young Jessica for obvious reasons at this point. This gives me a long-range nuker where I can just gradually wear them down if they decide to slow push. Alright. Alright, so right off the bat I went ahead and just passed turn on Mariel, because I wasn't exactly... obviously the first thing I did was I counted steps. I was a little concerned about Listel, because she could technically rush down if she needs to. And then of course you got Juggler. Bozo only has 3 mobility, does not have boots. Maya is not that dangerous, to be honest. I mean, she has her AoEs and that's about it. And really the key thing was kind of seeing where Luna is. And speaking of Luna, obviously her main benefit is the Wind God Realm, which can give additional mobility. But Listel's flying and so is Bozel, so neither of them are gaining the benefit from Luna. Juggler doesn't really need the benefit because he can teleport, and Maya, sure, you can give her extra mobility, but she's not a game changer. So I don't know what exactly the plan was with this setup. I think the plan was not really using Luna as a support, but since obviously she's Flyer, the intention was to use her as a striker, use the Cursed Spear to heal negate Freya, and that's, I'm guessing, probably the intention. In any case, Juggler here, like I mentioned before, went Triton, 3-cost skill and faction buff, which means until he teleports, he cannot guard against magic. Also, technically, he's not in water right now, so that's something I could take advantage of. So I was playing really conservative because I wasn't exactly sure what was going to happen here, because I don't know what sort of positioning my opponent was planning. Also, like I mentioned before, Maya has no faction buff, so her AoEs are going to do kind of minimum damage. I mean, only 1,000 int versus my 1,300 at this point. So I shifted down because Listel's range is actually pretty impressive. With her full mobility, she can easily get to here, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4. That would actually put Young Jessica at range of... I keep doing this where I assume Listel has her her 4 range ability, which does like the heal, Curse of Wounding or whatever it's called. Or sorry, not Curse of Wounding, but heal reversal. But she actually doesn't have that, so I was actually measuring all these steps based off a 4 range ability she didn't have. She actually went Blood Dance, Mindborn, Seal. So to be honest, I was actually safe in that position, because obviously there's nothing that's going to give additional mobility here. Alright, so my opponent moved up, so I was like, alright. So I left Maya out of the AoE here to keep Juggler close. Also, yeah, that was pretty much the main reason, was to keep Juggler close. The damage here was just to get him off of Last Rites if he happened to have it. Because remember, there's no healing for Juggler besides his passive accessory. So I passed turn here. Unfortunately, since I had already burned a turn from the Sophia buff, this is actually unbuffed. If it was buffed, I would have gotten a kill here. But it pretty much did the job. I wasn't that concerned at this point. My opponent didn't jump in at this point. Jumping in would have at least caused me some issues, but since he didn't, I was completely safe. I went ahead and rewind. This would reset Angelina's 3-cost skill. So at this point, it was just kind of seeing where my opponent would position based off that. Alright, here comes Super Maid. So yeah, as you see, it does very little damage, but it did do a mobility down. Went ahead and did faction buff at that point. So yeah, for those who don't know, when an enemy is within 2 blocks and increases, so that's even worse for her. That means long-range AoEs actually do less damage. And then before actively dealing damage to enemies, there's a 60% chance to dispel one of the enemy's buffs and increase the damage they take by 10%. So that triggered on one of the characters. And then after taking action, dispel 1 debuff from an ally within 2 blocks. So there weren't any debuffs, so it doesn't matter. I want to say that this is not a full... This is not a 6-star Maya. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I actually looked up all the characters because this Maya is 4 stars. So I went ahead and checked everyone else's stuff as well. The Juggler and the Luna are 6 stars. The Maya, Bozal, and Listel are 4 stars. So that does affect stats, that does affect talents and all that good stuff. I don't think it would have made that big of a difference in the end, just simply because you'll see in any case. But yeah, so I mean, first of all, kudos. This guy's got to gold 3 with this. I mean, it's either got gold 3 with this weird setup or got gold 3 using like mercenaries, which is kind of interesting. Anyway, let's get back to work. So, Wind God Realm stayed in place. I was like, alright, well, I'll just go ahead and see what my opponent keeps on doing. Essentially passing turns, and then Tidal Surge will get me the final tick of cooldown off my 3 costs. I'm going to use this to blow away all their AoE. And then I was going to go ahead and just finish off Bozal. At this point, I didn't really need Angelina anymore, because I'm not going to be able to refresh her cooldowns anyway. So, wasted a black hole on her. I was like, okay, that's fine. I don't really need to worry about that. Went ahead and took a step back. I could only take 1 step because I was actually mobility down and mobility up. So, infantry troops, so Fireball definitely shreds her. She also had no faction buff, so that was that. So, Dark Reaper. This will give Bozal some much needed healing at this point. Went ahead and refresh Roselash. Again, I was playing it pretty safe here. I wasn't exactly sure what's going on with Listel yet. And again, I was still assuming that she had that 4 range ability that does heal reversal. At this point, I was like, alright, let's clean house. Yeah, unfortunately, since I'm not using a faction buff, the first strike will have buffs, but then the follow-up strike does not. I was a little torn on whether or not I was going to go after Bozal or Listel. I think Listel was the better call because of the pushback. I wasn't entirely certain I was going to be able to get kill on Bozal. I think if he was at full health, probably not. So, lost my Maya, but that's okay at this point. Pass turn in place. So I specifically moved Sophia up just for the potential of getting the mobility +3. I also passed turn just to get some mobility, because obviously I need to get away from the mist and get as much distance as possible. So with 2 mobility, I would have only gotten here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would have been 1 short of actually hitting anyone, but now I have 5 mobility. I literally have coverage of just about the entire map. The only place I don't have coverage is that forest tile there. And I don't believe I have coverage in the bottom right. Yeah, so I don't have coverage on the corners, but everywhere else I can actually get a shot off. Alright, so Bozal moves up. So biggest concern was making sure I can so at this point I can get in range to shoot, but I would be in range of any potential AoEs from Bozal. I completely forgot that he actually used his black hole earlier. So I actually didn't need to worry about any sort of AoE from Bozal, so I could have actually just moved up and killed Listel immediately. But I went ahead and just used this opportunity to go ahead and just hit Bozal with Cleanse. Even with his high M defense, I do tons of damage, and pretty much got rid of most of his buffs that he just applied. So got hit with Mind Bore, moved back, finish off Listel. At this point, there's nothing my opponent can do. So yeah, good times. So let me take a quick look at the. Yeah, it's a gold 3 match. So yeah, Timon. I mean, kudos for him to get that far. But yeah, his box was kind of strange. I'll briefly show off the box that I lost against, because it was kind of crazy as well. I'm not going to show the match itself because there's just nothing to show. But yeah, the only tank here was Estelle, which her purpose was not for tanking, but for mobility increases. You got mobility increases from Imelda here, as well as Akaya, and then of course Actigins from Florentia. And then yeah, it's just kind of like it's just like an AoE push box. It honestly stands out because it's kind of missing the usual characters I would see, like obviously like Rian, Ares, um, those type of characters. So it was kind of neat to see. And honestly, if I hadn't have thrown it the first round, I probably could have pulled it off. So good stuff there. It's going to be another 2 weeks before Hilda comes out. I've already kind of considered what I'm going to do for when Hilda comes out. I'm going to be dropping Albedo, which is unfortunate, but I do use her in World Arena, so she's still going to get used one way or another. I was a little torn between whether or not I wanted to go a switch over to a 4 tank 2 healer setup type situation, but to be honest, the other tanks I have are not that important for what I tend to do. So the plan was I'm gonna drop Albedo, replace her with Hilda. Even if Hilda's 3 stars, she does provide a faction buff. She'll give me reincarnation faction buff, which will give me a lot more coverage. That means I'll get a faction buff for Marielle and so forth. And then I'm gonna end up dropping Liana and Lycoris, and I'm gonna replace them with Rosensteel and Florentia. So that'll be my new healers. That'll give me some additional resistance against debuff. My Rosensteel should be 5 stars, essentially Sunday. In other words, by the time you guys see this video, she'll be 5 stars. And then I think that's. Oh, and then I was gonna replace somebody else. I don't remember. Oh, I was gonna drop Angelina and go ahead and replace her with Naomi, who's currently 5 stars. My focus on my box is going to be trying to do long-range nuking, so characters like the Jessicas, and then Naomi has the ability to expand her attack range by 2 as well. So that's kind of the intention behind it. Everything else will remain the same. There'll be an exclusive helmet for Shalinka as well as for Renata. Shalinka's helmet will help her out a lot because it'll extend her buff durations by 1 whenever she self-buffs. So whenever she telegraphs or teleport, she can actually let her extra mobility her benefit stay around for an additional round, which gives me a lot more flexibility. Also, with the exclusive item, it makes it so if she falls asleep, she doesn't actually lose any buffs while she's asleep. So cool stuff there. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with the box as is, but like I said, I do want to change things up, and I do want to eventually stop relying on Angelina so much. So, until then, I am The Depressed Dior, and this was Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 6. See you guys later.